have them around.
Well, you're in the grandchildren mode, so you're you got the best of both worlds.
And who could believe he's going to be a year on Thursday?
Oh, and also, Ben, can you just let me know what the story is with Sonal Patel? Because I see she's in the waiting room. Is she like officially on the council, not on the council?
I have not received anything. Did you receive anything, Chanel?
Nope, it's not confirmed still.
It's not confirmed.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And we're streaming now. We're live. And I just will hit the record button and then we'll good to go. Oh, we are recording. Okay, great. All right. So let's let in everybody. Okay. All right. I believe everyone's been admitted that's in the waiting room. And I believe all council members have been made co-hosts. All right. My name is Ben Morden. I'm a CECD2 president. I've asked our parliamentarian to chair today's meeting. All right. Take it over, our parliamentarian, Leonard Silverman.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good evening.
Good evening, District 2 CEC. I'd like to welcome members of the public to our March 2023 general meeting. I'd like to call everyone to order, call this meeting to order, and ask that we could please have a roll call taken.
Chanel, do you want to do the first one?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, Robin Broshi,
Here.
Kaushik Das,
I'm here. I'm on my way home. I'll be dialed in. I'll be videoed in shortly.
Daniela Igorov,
Here.
Lupe Hernandez,
Present, also trying to get on camera very shortly.
Robin Kelleher,
I am present.
Chan Kwok,
I see him.
yes, yeah.
Jen?
Chen,
Can you hear me? I'm
No,
here.
Benjamin Morden,
Here.
Len Silverman,
Here.
Janie,
Here.
Lily, I don't see Lily, and Spencer Silverman.
Here.
Okay, yeah, quorum.
Just to confirm, approximately how many members do we have, Chanel?
You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, including Spencer.
Okay, a quorum being present, let's proceed with our meeting. The next thing on our agenda is the announcement of the council's Zoom chat rules and calendar meeting norms and expectations. Kush, are you able to do that?
So I'll do that. This is Janie. Let me share my
Okay, thank you,
screen.
Jane.
Okay. Can you see the chat rules? Because I can't.
We can see them, Janie.
Okay, awesome. So the chat rules are as posted. I'll also post it in the chat box. Chat rules, basically number one, chat rules will be posted at the start of the meeting. Only hosts and co-hosts will get unrestricted chat. All participants will be allowed to post to everyone or individually to host and co-host. There's no participant to participant chats. I'm not going to read through all of this because I think we've been through this quite a bit. One of the things we just want to try to maintain is respectful and civil communication. I will undertake being monitor for the chat. If I miss anything with regards to conversations getting a bit heated, message me and I will issue warnings. Basically, what we're trying to do is give people an opportunity to speak, but if things get out of hand, we will issue strikes. Basically, 3 strikes are out. The first strike I will put in the chat, strike 1. Second strike will be a second warning, strike 2. Third strike will be strike 3. Your name will appear, and then you will be removed. But you basically, your chat function will be turned off. Okay, let me unshare. Okay.
Thank you, Janie. I'd also just would appreciate it, and we should abide by the rules in not having, I would ask that all council members refrain from engaging with any members of the public in the chat. There's really no need for that, so I would not like to see a back and forth or comments specifically directed at members of the public, except if it is to provide information. I really don't want to have a tit for tat. Let's maintain decorum tonight and try to keep this as straightforward as possible meeting. With that being said, the next item on our agenda is the presentation of resolutions.
I'm sorry, can you let the interpreters make their announcements?
Sure, I'm sorry, go ahead. Will the interpreters please make their announcements?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm the Mandarin interpreter, Xiu Tang. 各位家长，晚上好，请需要国语翻译的拨打专线347-966-4114，密码是849-114-88，拨完请按井字，谢谢。Thank you.
Do we have any other interpreters that would like to say anything?
Para español, favor de marcar al 347-966-4114 con la clave 564-274-800 hashtag. Thank you.
My Spanish must be improving because I definitely understood the word hashtag. Any other interpreters that are here that would like to say anything? Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the presentation of resolutions. Right now, I'm showing approximately 1 resolution on our agenda, and that is Resolution 223, which is entitled Current State of High School Admissions in District 2. That is currently sponsored by Council members Das, Kwok, Ergarov, and Kelleher. Would any of the sponsors wish to speak on this resolution? If you could just keep your comments, let's say under 3 or 4 minutes, that would be good.
This is for 223?
223, that's correct.
I think Chris will present.
Is Chris on? He asked me to present if he couldn't get on. Is it?
Last we heard, he's traveling right now. So.
He's trying to get on, but I think he's having trouble with this new Zoom with the authentication code.
Okay, so
I'm willing to make a motion to move this if
I can present. I mean, I could talk briefly about it.
That's fine. Okay, if you proceed.
Yeah. So yes, so Resolution 223. It's about the current state of high school admissions in District 2. I'll try to summarize a little bit as much as possible. So the CECD2 thanks the DOE, Chancellor Banks, First Deputy Chancellor Weisberg, Head of Enrollment, Sarah Kleinhinder, and the Office of Enrollment for making improvements to the high school admissions process. In particular, the earliest announcement of high school results in years. There's a simultaneous offering of specialized and non-specialized high schools is also appreciated. There are also other incremental changes that all children, including academic advanced students, require and deserve to meet their needs. There's an return. The parents were pleased with return to academic screening with more narrowly defined tier 1. Continue to offer specialized high school admission tests with a reasonable time frame, convenience of an equal opportunity for taking the shot in the students' schools. While these are improvements, we still think that it doesn't go far enough. The continued use of bucketing for tiers still relies too heavily on lotteries. Our students are more than lottery numbers. The continued use of bucketing creates a sharp drop-off in viable school options when students, even with students with a 94 average, right below the tier 1 cutoff. 94.33 for one school is not the same as 94.33 in another. Grading standards for New York City and even within our district vary widely. Grade inflation has been a known problem for years. And some schools have very strict grading policies and other schools have very loose ones. So there's, the state test should be a factor for admission. And we welcome alternative assessments from iReady or the like to minimize high stakes testing. And we still find that the largest problem with high school admissions for District 2 still remains that many students still have no District 2 or borough priority District 2 in itself, students have no district or borough priority for the 3rd year in a row. Our students compete with students from all over the city who all enjoy borough priority for their own boroughs, zoned high schools or both. And some of these students enjoy additional priority to a local school. It's been the largest cause of 18% of District 2 students receiving none of the top 12 choices for 2 years in a row. We were the worst performing district, whether or not specialized high school acceptance were factored in for 2 years in a row. We had a resolution about this 210. Superintendent McGuire, after speaking to DOE enrollment, reported to Community Board 1 on March 8th that the numbers were better this year. However, this is expected with the narrowing of buckets in another year of enrollment loss. And we're going to still anticipate having the worst outcomes for the 3rd year in a row, despite being the highest performing district. And we have to remind everyone that several high schools within District 2, including Eleanor Roosevelt High School and Millennium High School, originally provided for geographic priority for admissions for high school students in D2, because there was a dearth of local quality high schools accessible within reasonable commuting times for District 2 and Manhattan students. And at Community Board 1 meeting, the Youth and Education Committee, Vice President Das was reminded by the chair of the Y&E committee that Millennium High School was specifically built for lower Manhattan students with 9/11 relief funding, as there were no non-specialized high school in the area during that time. And so some other things that they would put the loss of priority for District 2, we feel is a political maneuver for punitive against something that's punitive against District 2's quote unquote privilege. And it's very short-sighted. And we also now have declining enrollment. Therefore, we resolve the DOE leadership to sit down with CECD2 to visit the matter of District 2 high school priority. And we also resolve that we insist that the DOE reward student learning with desirable local school options through a non-lottery admissions process, adding greater consistency, predictability, transparency, and short travel times from kindergarten through high school is critical to recover high school enrollments and improve student outcomes. And we urgently request that previously removed district priority to District 2 high schools should be restored to current D2 middle school students for the next admission cycle to ensure that D2 8th graders receive placement to a neighborhood high school. Zone high school should be additionally or alternatively considered as part of the solution. Facing the above two requests, at minimum, borough priority should be instituted for Manhattan students for the next high school admissions in hopes that students should not have to travel more than 45 minutes to their high school unless they explicitly choose to do.
Wrap it up, please. Sorry.
Yes. So we want test scores, state test scores, should tell students, the DOE should tell students and their families that state tests matter and should inform them now before the state tests, before they start to be given in March and April. using GPA weighting also for accelerated coursework, and abandoning the tier bucketing and lottery in favor of straight GPAs and or rank. High schools should be allowed discretion to adjust screening rubrics to emphasize certain factors, STEM, humanities, as opposed to the choice of a single criterion determined by the DOE. And high school discretion should not be limited to consortium schools. Thank you.
Okay.
That was a long 3 minutes. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Well, we said, I think we went up to 4, but thank you. I see that Councilmember Das had his hand raised. Councilmember Kwok actually presented the resolution, so I would ask you to restrict your presentation comments, if any, to item number 9 on our agenda when we actually discuss the resolutions. But Kwok did a nice presentation. Thank you. I don't believe we have any other resolutions on the agenda, do we, at this point? Okay. Then we're moving right along on our agenda, and the next item is the program presentation. Do we have any program presentations tonight?
No.
This is great. Okay. We normally, just for members of the public who might be attending their first CEC meeting, we occasionally do have presentations on topics of interest. Many of them are presented by our superintendent, Kelly McGuire, and his staff. So I would urge you to tune in when we do have those upcoming presentations. Please check out the CECD2 website for information on what presentations we'll have in the upcoming months. Next item on the agenda is the first public speaker session. And I would ask, do we have anyone signed up for the first public speaking session?
No.
Okay. Then in that case, this will be a first. We're going to move on to the report of the president, but actually, Ben, before you go, I just want to make a public service announcement, if I may. For those of you who are interested in CEC elections, the District 2 President's Council, which I am a co-president of, will be conducting our District 2 CEC candidate forum, which will be in the evening of April 3rd. Is that correct, Jennifer? I think it's April 3rd.
Correct.
Okay. So I would, there'll be more information to follow, but if you are a candidate or if you are interested in seeing who is declared themselves as candidates for the next term of the Community Education Council, I would urge you to leave that evening free. That's April 3rd. That meeting is traditionally is also a meeting of the District 2 President's Council, and we have our forum in lieu of our regular monthly meeting. So that's a meeting I think everyone should attend if you're available. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to our esteemed District 2 Community Council President, Ben Morton.
All right. Thank you very much, Len, and thank you for bringing up April 3rd. I think that's just a few days before spring break, so I'll look forward to listening to all the candidates. This week, the New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, released a report. I recommend everyone to read it. It basically confirms a lot of what we already know about the city and state in terms of learning loss with the NAEP test, which is our nation's report card, but where it adds something new, and just to step back, that test was done last summer. I know District 2 has done just last month. I believe it was announced some great results with students. So there's been a lot of work since these tests have been out. But what's new, and we should recognize that as well. But what's new in the report from the state comptroller was that the various different monies that were federally funded programs, like the, well, it's in the report, but what's new is that the monies that were set aside for academic recovery for the first year of the national funds was $500 million. But in subsequent years, year 2 and year 3, that money, according to the comptroller, drops precipitously. It's $1 million, I think, for the next 2 years, and then nothing for 2025. So it's a really sharp drop off in funds specifically for academic recovery. And I think it's really important if we recognize that that learning loss is a problem, then some of that money that's allocated from the federal fund should be allotted to it. It shouldn't just be a complete drop off. And just in our district too, we there are issues where there was fourth grade math loss, not so much in ELA, but definitely in math. And you see it not just from fourth grade where it's worse, but even up through eighth grade. We have a community where there's one student with a 4 on the state test and 4 kids with a 3 and the rest not. And so that's not acceptable. So we should be earmarking, in my opinion, more towards academic recovery, because that was the intent of these funds. And so I wanted to bring attention to that, and I plan to also advocate with the DOE in that regards, because I do believe the intent of the funds was not just for other issues, which we have set aside monies for, but also for academic recovery. And we've heard just last month some fantastic practices by our district, but they need to be expanded. And I'm not sure how you do that without funding. I hope maybe our superintendent can also speak to that if it is a need, because then we can work together to see how to allocate that. But this was literally a report that the controller was sharing just yesterday. So I think it should be discussed and addressed. All right, and that's all I wanted to say. And also congratulations to many families that the high school results were issued released the other day. I know in previous years there were some issues too. So if there are families or parents that had issues with getting schools in their district for high school admissions, if they want to reach out to our CEC, we can try to work with you to see if there are solutions out there. I know there are waiting lists, and I'm hoping to invite someone from the DOE to speak at a future council meeting to explain how the waiting lists will work this year. Because last year they did expand it after some advocacy to the first or second week of September, I believe, and this current school year in September. So I would hope they can come and join us from the DOE enrollment to share how the process works, because some families, for many, will be a concern. But all right, thank you very much.
And I'm going to do speaker's prerogative, and I want to thank you for your service as District 2 president of the CEC. It's a lot of work. I don't know if the public has any idea about how many meetings you attend and how involved you are in all the issues with this council, but I think on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you for your service as our president. I know you won't do it yourself, so I'm going to do it on behalf of the council. That's how modest you are. So it is really appreciated. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to use the word esteemed twice this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed District 2 Superintendent, Kelly McGuire, for his report.
Thanks so much. And good evening, CEC and the rest of the District 2 community. I am joined this evening by two of our team members. Jennifer Greenblatt is always here, as are a couple of our team members who have joined us. But we also have Daniel Mason, who works on the District 2 team, who's going to talk a little bit about state designations and some changes that have occurred with the state. So I do just want to start by just sharing a little bit about some of the school visits that we have been on lately. We've been able to visit the Billion Oyster Project at MS 131 and the Chinese bilingual class at PS 1. We also have had some great celebrations in a partnership that several of our schools have with an organization, City Lore. And City Lore is a well-known arts organization in Manhattan and a few schools that are outside of the borough. They engage with PS1 in a poetry slam, which was attended by several different folks from around the district. And then we also attended a City Lore arts organization at LMC, and this was an art project in which that was combined with literacy, in which students had to make individual puppets and then write stories about them. LMC is a school that has received several new students whose families are seeking asylum in our country, and there were some great stories about speaking with some of those students and learning how it is that they were sharing their work and experience through these puppets and this art project. And then PS40 had a big event, the American Heart Association Kid Heart Challenge. This was an event in which families came out to learn about healthy practices that they can help their young people, their children, to engage in and build healthy habits throughout their time in school. So it's been a busy few weeks here in District 2, but we're looking to continue to share some of the good things that are happening around the district and some of these other community events that are happening. So I am going to turn it over to Daniel Mason in just a second, and he will introduce himself to you. And Daniel, just let me know when you want me to advance the slide. But we're going to talk a little bit about ESSA, which is the new version, the new language that was derived from the No Child Left Behind legislation that passed in the early 2000s. So Daniel, I'll pass it over to you unless you want me to talk to this slide.
No, that's quite all right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Mason. I'm the Academic Policy, Performance, and Assessment Specialist for District 2. So one of my responsibilities within the district is supporting schools with state designation. And just so that you're aware, this past week, New York State did release designations to all schools. Parents should receive notification. I think by the 17th, they should receive a letter from their school outlining the designation, and then the information should go public by the end of the month for the entire school system. There have been some changes with the state designation system, so I did want to go over that with you. You can see on this slide, this is a lot of this information was true for the old system, or the system as it's been. New York State designation system is based on ESSA. Which is a federal program to ensure that funding goes to schools. Every state had to accept certain criteria or certain ways of monitoring their schools. New York State Education Department has a system, the state designation system, which I'm going over now, and schools are designated various categories based on student academic achievement, growth, and school progress. The progress of English language learners, chronic absenteeism, and then high school graduation rates. The big change has been with the titles of some of the designations. So I think the next slide actually has the titles. Yeah, there it is. So you'll notice on this chart, this has all of the designations. One of the designations is new, and that's that middle designation, ATSI. I'll go over what that means. The designation at the end, LSI, is the same designation as good standing as it was before, but they just changed the name. So let me go over all of these one at a time, just so that you're aware. CSI is comprehensive support and improvement. That is the lowest designation that a school can have. ATSI, additional targeted support and improvement, is the next level of support. Targeted school for support and improvement, TSI school, is the next level, and the highest level or the best level is LSI, which stands for local support and improvement. New York State used to use GS, or good standing, as the highest designation. However, New York State Education Department wanted to reflect the fact that all schools do receive some level of support from their district and from the state, and all schools are still continuing to work to improve. So rather than using good standing, LSI is the new designation for the highest designation. I am happy to report that for District 2, all schools have been designated as LSI. Under the previous system or previous years, we did have one school that was a TSI school. That school did work very hard to get themselves off the list. And as I mentioned before, we do not have any schools that are listed as LSI. Excuse me, as anything but LSI. And then in terms of the criteria that did go into creating these designations, just so that you're all aware, the criteria is changing, and each year additional criteria will be added and adapted by the state. Measures are going to be added and phased in each year, and the goal is to get back to the exact measures as they were, or even better than pre-COVID.
Thanks so much, Daniel.
No problem.
We did want to acknowledge this local support and improvement. That's new language. If schools had previously, or excuse me, if parents had previously received communication from their schools that noted them as being in good standing, this LSI designation is new. So we wanted to take a quick moment to just highlight that. We are in the midst of a few different campaigns going on in the city, one of them being the New York City school surveys. The chancellor has made several different announcements about trying to up the number of families that are completing school surveys. And we've been reaching out to all of our parent coordinators, teachers, principals to ask them to encourage families to complete the school survey, as well as all students in grades 6 through 12. And all teachers and educators. So the school survey is used to capture information from teachers in 3K through 12, students in grades 6 through 12, and then families of all kids. The school survey is also administered to all staff members that are a part of paraprofessionals, parent coordinators, social workers, psychologists, secretaries, teachers, of course. So we usually get very high rates of participation amongst the staff. And again, we want to try to encourage as many families to participate in this as possible. This survey can be taken online via a child's NICSA account. Or there is also a paper copy that is available and should be distributed to every single family as well. And then this survey runs through March 31st. So we've got a few weeks left to get those surveys completed. We've heard of some very creative things happening in schools to get surveys completed. So if you're on the PTA leadership, one of the nice things that we had heard about was just people walking around with QR codes at arrival. So when families are dropping off their children, they can just scan that QR code with their phone and get into the system. So, but we are looking to have as many families complete that survey as possible. We had started speaking a little bit about some professional development training. As I have spoken several times while superintendent, we have been really focused on our early literacy and making sure that our children in grades K through 2 have access to high quality instruction in early literacy and foundational literacy. And I can say very proudly that the practices in K2 literacy are really growing. In fact, a few of our schools have been visited by the deputy chancellors and her team for teaching and learning to see the practices in place, not just because they hear that the instruction is good, but because they are seeing the results of these practices in our academic screeners. And so the letters training, which is a training that we provided to all of our teachers last year, the city actually decided to adopt the letters training for all leaders, all principals in the system. And so all of the principals in New York City have to participate get to participate in a letters training. They had the first one back on February 28th and then another on May 2nd. And that's just to deepen the understanding and knowledge of our school leaders. The letters training builds on knowledge, our principals, the knowledge of our principles, and really emphasizes the skills necessary for reading proficiently, as well as principals also learn a little bit about the brain and how the brain processes language and literacy. And so this is a fantastic initiative. Our principals have really appreciated being able to be a part of this. And we think that continuing with letters training for our school leaders is really going to help to expand even further those great practices that we see in K2. It's also been widely promoted and shared that both Mayor Adams and Chancellor Banks have taken time to really work to build partnerships between the Department of Education and the New York City Police Department. As we've shared before, that Chancellor Banks's priority, all students are physically and emotionally safe, is the top priority. We want to make sure that all students feel comfortable coming to school. So we've been holding regular meetings with our NYPD police captains of different precincts. Those captains have been meeting directly with all of the principals who have schools within the precinct, and they have all of the cell phone numbers of leadership in the precincts. They've also expanded programs like the NYPD Explorers that help to build relationships between young people and the police, and also the expansion of Project Pivot, which is really targeted at helping to make sure that kids not just feel comfortable in school, but that there is comfort in the neighborhood, and that kids feel comfortable transitioning from their schools to the subway system or buses. So Project Pivot has been supporting not just community-based supports and structures, but also counseling, connections with families and parents, and deepening the relationship with other community-based organizations. As mentioned earlier, the New York State exams are coming up soon. These are the dates for the New York State exam. So the ELA exam is the 19th through 24th. There is a day off in there, so you would expect kind of the 19th through 21st, but since kids are off for April 21st, Eid al-Fitr, we have expanded that schedule to the following Monday. The computer-based administration, which I'll talk about in just a second, has a couple of extra days. So April, the date there, those are the dates for the ELA exam. These are the dates for the mathematics exam. And then the two Regents exams that are administered in many of our middle schools, but will be administered in all of our middle schools, are those dates for this year are here, June 14th and June 15th. I mentioned the computer-based administration. So every year, our students take not just the New York State exam in math and English in grades 3 through 8, but there are also some field exams that students take as a part of the state's process of testing out problems and questions and language that they might use on future exams. Several of our schools are involved in computer-based administration of those field exams. A couple of our schools are participating just in 5th grade in the computer-based exams for the primary ELA test. So that's PS 124 and PS 150 are participating in computer-based administration just in 5th grade only. Also, a couple of our middle schools, MS 131 and MS 276, only in 8th grade are those schools participating in computer-based exams. So this is the direction that the state is going toward computer-based administration of exams. There will always be modifications and accommodations for kids who need extended time, either through an individualized education plan or a 504. But we are looking to make sure that kids get kids and families get information in regard to how it is that they're performing on state exams more quickly. We know that there's often a long delay between the administration of the exam and the date by which those exams are scored and returned to families. And we also want to make sure that we are testing kids in a way with which they feel most comfortable. Kids are often writing more when they are producing it on a computer than in handwritten. So we're trying to make sure that our testing as a state, trying to make sure that our administration strategy is matching that in which kids can do their very best. There are some events coming up in regard to high school admissions. If you are a family or you are a parent of a child who is on a wait list and you want to learn more about the wait lists that are being provided by our enrollment office, there are some dates here for those admissions open houses and virtual events for families. Those dates are here. You can access the dates here via the web, or of course, you can always use the internet to search for these high school admissions events. We also have the summer youth employment applications. Those are open. They do close March 31st. Again, go to the Department of Education website if your child is 14 to 24 to see what activities might be available for employment this summer. SYEP is the largest youth employment program in the country. And so there are a lot of fantastic opportunities for kids through SYEP. And then finally, just a couple of key dates as I wrap up here. The 6th through the 14th, schools are closed for Passover. As I mentioned, Eid is in the month of April, and then we have May conferences also coming up, those individual dates. I know different schools approach conferences in May a little bit differently, but those are the dates that are officially designated as conference dates in May. And thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Superintendent McGuire. First, I just want to let the members of the public know that it is the policy and procedure of the District 2 Community Education Council only to permit council members to question the superintendent. So if you do have a question, just understand we're not ignoring you. You can speak at the public's speaking session, but you will not be able to address Superintendent McGuire at this time. Before I recognize our council members, could you please try to keep your questions to under 2 minutes. And with that, I think, Danielle, I think you had your hand up first.
Thank you. Superintendent Kelly, I want to ask you, well, first, I really am very happy to know that Chancellor Banks is really prioritizing science of reading and early literacy. And I know that our district is doing a lot of work on that. I wanted to ask if you, I know there's some good practice happening, but I also know for a fact that there are some schools still using the queuing system and some curriculum that is not based on the latest research on how kids learn to read. Do you have a sense of how many of our schools are still using, Lucy Calkins curriculum or I think it's Fountains and Pinnell? How many of our schools are still using those curriculums that we know don't work? As somebody who is paying for phonics tutor, I know how expensive it is. It's incredibly expensive. They tell you which days they can work for your kid. And what I heard was you should book with 6 months in advance. And I said, well, if my kid was struggling, if I knew that my kid would struggle with 6 months in advance, I would have booked that with 6 months in advance. But so I really think it's so important for us to be able to provide this inside the school Otherwise, people have to pay out of their pocket, and not everybody can do that.
Thanks so much for the question. I really appreciate it and agree with you 100%. So in all of our schools, there is a phonics-based, science-based reading program in early literacy. The question is, to what degree is that program being implemented? And so our real focus is on making sure that those programs aren't limited just to a group of children who might, at first glance, present at being behind academically, because what we have learned through the science of reading and also all of the different work that I've gained professionally, as well as our principals, is that these are practices really that should be provided and expanded to every single child. You might not know that a child is missing some of those early phonics programs until they're in 3rd grade. And really what we're trying to do is make sure that kids in kindergarten through 2nd grade have access to that. So those programs are being taught in all of our schools, but they are not yet being taught to the degree that I would like to see and am planning to see across our schools in the next year. We are going to expand those programs. We're putting a lot of resource and time into making sure that our teachers are well trained and that our principals are well aware of what makes for good practice, what good practice looks like, and what is not. So that's what we're hoping to see in the next year. And I told the Chancellor that we were on our way, we were well on our way, but that we needed to do even more to make this real for everybody.
Can I rephrase the question? Because I think the question is, how many schools are still teaching the queuing system? You can get a little bit of phonics, but the kids are still also being taught to guess the word, look at the first letter and then guess the word, look at the picture. And I can guarantee you for a fact there are schools in our district who are still teaching the queuing system. That is a disservice to whatever phonics work you're doing. So I think it's really important to do an assessment and an audit of which schools are using those curriculums that we know are detrimental to children learning to read. And I can guarantee for a fact that there are schools in our district that are teaching kids to guess the queuing, look at the picture, look at the first letter, guess the word. And we know that that doesn't help, and it actually makes it harder for children to learn to read.
Yeah, and so we are, I will say in all of the schools, we are using both a program, Foundations, Heggerty. These are the 2 most common early literacy programs, but you aren't wrong. There are a small handful, I would say less than 5, that are continuing to teach some of the programs that we don't feel comfortable with. So we are working closely with those principals and teachers to make sure that they are trained and that they are implementing the kind of phonics program that we know works for kids.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelleher.
Hi, Kelly. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for bringing up Project Pivot. I really applaud the Chancellor Banks and his team for really going out on a limb to try to secure the safety, emotional well-being and the safety of our children, especially after today, where we saw 3 separate shootings and stabbing yesterday. It's been very scary times. So I hope that you will relay that message and just reinforce how committed we are to the safety of our children. I also, you brought up the questionnaire, and I had a lot of questions about the questionnaire from my elementary school. A lot of the 5th grade parents in particular who were pretty unhappy this year with admissions were frustrated about there was a question about the superintendent, and they felt like it was stuck in the middle of questions about the school. And they felt that, first of all, it should have been separate, so it was clear, so that it wasn't missed. And they also felt there should have been an area for comments if the DO really wanted to hear the voice. So I hope you will relay that as well to the Chancellor, because I know it's not your choice, but I do think it's important that we ask parents their thoughts. It's really important that we get them, especially after the changes made this year. And lastly, I wanted to ask you about the state tests. You mentioned state test season. Just out of curiosity, what is the point of the state tests if we're not going to use them for admissions? And I know I got some flyers. I was very confused. I got a flyer about opt-out season. And it seemed to be coming from the DOE. I don't know if you know about it, but so is the DOE in favor of state testing, or are they trying to convey a message that students should opt out? Because the mixed messaging is really confusing parents and students. And I think it'll, lead to further decline in students taking tests, I would imagine, and test scores themselves if students don't feel like their test scores actually matter.
Any kind of literature information regarding opt-out is definitely not coming from the Central Department of Education nor from our District 2 office. I know that there obviously are families who choose to opt their child out of the exams. But I will say that as a general practice, that the state exams are a very useful tool. They're a useful tool for us at the district level and certainly for us as a city. It is a standardized assessment by which we can check in and see how it is that we're doing. There are not that many assessments out there that kids take that really gives us the opportunity to do a pulse check on how it is that we're performing as educators and how it is that we're serving kids. So I recognize that there is a small number of kids, whether it's in regard to being new to the country, perhaps not being familiar with English, perhaps having a struggle to take exams due to a learning disability or otherwise. But the state exams are an important tool for us. And we do need kids to take them if we are to
So are you going to share with the results of the state test? Because what I've seen, they're pretty abominable, what the learning loss that we've seen. And I also wanted the flyer, I'm looking at it right now. NYC opt out. It's also co-sponsored by ECC, More UFT, a couple other groups. You might want to look into that because I think that's probably not what you want coming from a DOE, DOE sites. It appears to be a DOE flyer and it's clearly not DOE. So I would imagine that's somewhat of a conflict of interests. And I also please do ask the administration about the state test. And if since they do obviously value the importance, as you're saying, of the state test, please do share with the wider community what you're finding from the people who do decide to take the test. And I would think that people who opt out, that might be an indicator of a problem that we should really consider, that if people are being encouraged to opt out and they do, how can we hold schools accountable? How can we make sure students aren't falling behind? And how can we really serve our families if we don't reach out to those who are opting out?
Okay, Councilmember Morton.
All right, thank you, Len. Superintendent McGuire, since you did mention the state test, and I'm glad to hear that that you appreciate the pulse that it provides. Since we are getting, since we're doing testing or assessments using iReady, Acadience, and MAP, is there? I know you've provided updates and timely. Is there that we can get more timely for results from the district, so we can share, like, we can see how the district is doing, or is the DOE, does the DOE have any plans to provide that data? Because if our role on the council here is to not just hold the DOE accountable, but it's just to advocate for students and student learning. And that once a year test is good, but getting more feedback, is better. So, all right, thank you.
And sure. And I certainly understand, why a family member might want to know how their children are doing on the screener assessments. And family members parents can always have access to their child's performance on those screeners. There's a couple of things that make it difficult to share the data publicly as a whole. One of them is that the way in which these screeners are set up in the Department of Education, the way in which they are being used is not set up to be a tool to measure progress of an entire district or school across the board. What we're really looking for is grade levels of students and certainly being able to monitor the progress of individual students. So that's one reason, is that the tool is just really set up not necessarily as a to be able to look at these data more broadly, but to really help us determine whether or not students are making progress toward the standards. But both the publishers of these assessments have not approved them for wide distribution of these data. And the Department of Education isn't looking at these data in that way either. But again, families can always get access to their child's screener assessments. They're really screener assessments. They are not the type of assessment that would give you a comprehensive picture of how kids are doing. They're more discrete in looking at the kinds of skills that are going to help kids to, the kinds of baseline skills that are going to help kids to do well on the state exams down the road, but they're not vetted in the kind of way that the New York State exams are. The other thing that it makes it a little tricky too is that we are using several different screener assessments in the district. There's a cadence for reading, a cadence for math, MAP for reading, MAP for math, iReady for reading, iReady for math. So one snapshot doesn't necessarily give you the picture of how kids are doing across the board, because there are different tools that are being used, and there are different measures, different ways that those data are presented by the different tools. So again, they're a very good tool for us, and I'm incredibly thankful for this decision being made by our central office to continue with these screeners. It's incredibly important and useful for me as principal to be able to talk with teachers about how their kids are doing, talk with principals about how an individual class is doing. But again, they're not the kind of tool that's set up in the way that the state exams are.
I just have one quick follow-up question. Deputy Chancellor Blackburn announced at the CCHS forum with the chancellor that they're using Zern now as a tool for not just assessing math skills, but helping to recover and accelerate math skills. Is that being used as well in District 2, or is that being rolled out, and for which grades?
Yes, Zern is being rolled out in a few of our schools, but not across the board. Different districts had more or less access to Zern, and Zern is an online program in mathematics and literacy to help kids practice skills. It's not an online test prep, it's a computer-based program to help develop learning. So that's being used in a few of our schools. What we are really working toward in the coming year is not just strong implementation of our core curricula, which is an area of need in some schools, to really make sure that the core curricula in math and literacy is being taught in the way that the researchers who developed the curriculum intended it for it to be taught. And then layering in on top of that a intervention program like Zern for kids who can benefit from that, or making it available to all kids, because there are some kids who are working who are very strong and very high performers who can also benefit from the continued work.
Thank you. Councilmember Kwok.
Yes, hi, Superintendent McGuire. Thank you very much. I want to first say thank you for helping to resolve the grade, lost grade information in my schools and my students. So thank you very much. They seem to be restored on both apps or both websites. And I also appreciate the Project Pivot, where there's more communication with principals and the police. We're in a very, very, I don't know what to call it, it's a very severe environment where there's daily, weekly reports or acts of violence by, involving students. I'm not going to say it's particularly done by students. Some students are being shot by adults, so it's horrendous. I guess for the, I had a question, but for the, what was I going to ask you? It's not in my thoughts. For the standardized testing, you said that the iReady is not, it's not designed to be used to be shared across. What about the MAP test, the measure of academic progress? That had been given in the past several years in the midst of during COVID to assess, how students are doing coming back from the lockdowns and school closures. Can we use that, apply that, and use that, because they have a before and after assessment, and I think that would be a very powerful tool for us to see on a district level. Different countries use it, and it's used around the world in both public and private schools. So I think that might be something we should consider for looking at alternatives to the state tests that we can use. And I also want to say one thing about the state tests. I agree with you on your point also that it's an important tool to be used to look at how students are performing. The other thing I would add to that is, and you mentioned as well, I want to accentuate, is that there are many schools where the grades that students get and the state test scores that same student gets are complete opposites. So you can have a student with a grade of 4 on the report card for whatever subject, let's say math. But then once that student takes the state test, the math score is a 1 or a 2. And that and I agree with you that because it is a standardized measure, subjective, it's applied to every student. However flawed a standardized test is, at least it's asks the same questions. If one student, if a test question is flawed, every kid will have, will not get it, or it'll be flawed for every student or more students. But it's like a thermometer that tells you something is wrong for the families to know. It's really important for the families to understand that, if once they take a state test, there's a test that would be the same across all schools, unlike grades, which one teacher can grade more stringently, or another teacher can grade easier. So it's getting facts and getting truth and understanding how the child is doing. So I really want to accentuate that point as well. So I don't know if you can answer about the map. So I'm sorry, my long-winded answers. Thank you.
No, I appreciate about the map. And just in regard to the grades, Daniel, who is with me this evening from our district team, he's the one who really was helpful with the school administration in fixing some grades. So thanks, Daniel, for that. So just in regard to MAP, one of the ways in which MAP is really strong, which is similar to both the Acadian screener and the iReady screener, is that there is a beginning of year assessment, a middle of year assessment, and an end of year assessment. And what we are really looking for is growth in all of our students. So just a couple of things that we have not yet, the central office has not yet decided on just a single screener. Those are some conversations that we're having as a district about whether we want to decide on just one screener assessment as a district, whether it's MAP or iReady. Acadience is definitely the screener that is used across our elementary schools, especially in reading. But again, we have currently several different assessments that are used to measure students' progress, to measure students' growth throughout the course of the year. And then the other thing is that the way in which the data are reported is not standardized across all of these different assessments. So I think some changes would need to be made in regard to how the student data were captured on the screeners, if we were to move from making this less about a class of students or individual students and more something that we would publish widely across the city or across the district.
Thank you, Councilmember Lim Fong Sim.
Hi, I have a quick question about the iReady data. So you said this concept of beginning, mid, and end of the year assessment. When the schools complete an assessment, can you give an example of how a school would engage in students who are performing severely below grade level versus students who are performing extremely above grade level? Because what I'm trying to understand is how the schools use the data and what do they do with it?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. The first point that I'd like to make is that all students should have access to the grade level core curriculum. And so if we have a group of students who are performing below grade level or above grade level, everybody should have access to that core curriculum to make sure that they are getting everything that it is expected to be taught in that grade level and as per the state standards for that content area. Then what we need to do is layer on top of that access for students who need more. And we call that tier 2 and tier 3. So these are systems in which we are really working across the district to make sure, first of all, that all of our schools are implementing the core curriculum, that they are implementing it really, really well, and then working with our schools to develop both the schedule and program, as well as the content and the tool that can be used to build upon that tier 1 curriculum. So that might be an enrichment exercise for kids who are performing above grade level. And that might be additional support for kids who are working below and far below grade level. We want to make sure that kids have that they don't lose out on that standard curriculum. So if ELA, for example, is taught for 120 minutes in a week, we want all of our kids, all of our students to have access to that 120 minutes. And then what we want to do is make sure that we can layer on additional time for those supports.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. First, there were rumors that preceded the announcement of high school admissions results. So my first question is, are there any rumors or expectations in terms of when the middle school admission results are going to be coming out? That's the first question. And the second question is, when we were here last time, you had mentioned, you talked about numbers of students, currently immigrant students or who are now attending District 2 schools. I was wondering if since our last CC meeting, you have any update on that in terms of whether or not we've got more students who have been placed in District 2 schools, because I know there was a concern in our district about schools being taxed in terms of resources. So if you have any update on that and the total number of students or any information you can provide would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. As for the middle school results, I really don't know. I haven't heard any rumors or information that would let me know as to when those results and offers are going to be released. In regard to our students from families seeking asylum, I would say at one point, the number was probably roughly 1,000 across the district. I can't say definitively whether that number has changed very much. Schools are reporting to me that the numbers of kids are, in some cases, the number of students has gone up in their school, and in other schools, the number has gone down. It seems as though there are some families that are deciding whether or not kids are going to remain, families are going to remain in New York City, or whether they're going to go outside of New York City. So it has fluctuated a little bit, and I can't say definitively. It's kind of a little bit day to day that things have changed in small numbers.
Councilmember Doss.
Hi, Kelly. Question. So you said that you don't know no rumors about the one regarding the rumors and admission in general. You said you don't know about middle school applications or results. I had heard that from a reliable source that the principals have already received preliminary kindergarten lists and are kind of sorting through that for accuracy as well as some other stuff. If that's the case, I presume middle school's already gotten similar results, and then we're just in the final proof and audit stage. No.
I really have not heard anything about middle schools and lists. I haven't heard any middle school principals tell me that they've received their lists, and I haven't heard that middle schools have received lists of kids.
Right. Then, and you received nothing further from you. You made a brief statement or in Community Board 1. I spoke there later after you. That you had heard from high school, that you'd heard the high school numbers weren't as bad as last year. Have they provided you any further updates since?
They have not. It's and that's the share that I've heard have been very anecdotal. So I'm very anxious to find out what the numbers look like as well.
Okay, sorry, that wasn't one of my main questions. That was for public service, if that's all right. Can we get back to the testing issue though? Regarding testing, and going off of what someone here posted in the chat, I believe she might be a teacher or a former teacher. And we had discussed this before. I think there's a way to toggle a setting to grade to see how your student or child is doing regardless of grade. I think it puts a score in like the 500, 600, 700 range, which I think roughly corresponds with grade level. 500 is being roughly 5th grade. There's more precise cutoffs, but 600 being 6th grade, etc., or something like that. I know it sounds like the DOE hasn't turned that on. Is there a reason why that can't be turned on for additional assessment? Because it is something that's addressed in a resolution tonight. It's something that can be done to reduce high stakes testing as a requirement. It's something that could be used to fill a variety of different needs, especially if a kid doesn't take the state test or bombs the state test or is sick for the state test. Is there any particular reason why that can't be done?
Yeah, I don't doubt that the iReady assessment could be used in a way like that. But I do think that there would need to be some significant modifications, both in terms of how schools administer the assessment, how it is that the administration of those assessments are supported by our central offices. But right now, it's just this very strong tool for us to be able to look at and help to understand how a student or small group of students that we're targeting are doing, and that has been really, really helpful to schools. So again, I'm not saying that it couldn't be done. I'm not familiar with all of the different ways in which iReady could be modified, but presently it's not it's not set up for that.
And related to that, then the testing, whether we were talking about iReady or state tests, and again, it's something that's addressed in a resolution. It's something that's been discussed ad nauseum in the past, and something that's been discussed in papers as well. Is there any reason why testing, whether we're talking about state test and or iReady, can't be used to confirm basically grades that are done by a school if they're grading too leniently, if there's grade inflation, if they're grading too harshly? Because in theory, I find the math state test to be actually highly aligned to our curriculum. I think ELA I can go back and forth on, but wouldn't that be a useful tool? I mean, it wouldn't the general idea. I know kids. There are some kids that don't test well, and some kids that do better at home, at schoolwork, and vice versa. But overall, shouldn't the distribution of state test scores look like the distribution of grades within, roughly speaking, a larger school, and certainly speaking within a district? Couldn't that be used to help combat the grade inflation versus harsh grading issue, which is not just an issue in our district, but an issue citywide?
I'll say that if you took 100 parents and you put them into a room and you ask them what it is that a child should be graded on, I think that those parents would probably agree on the vast majority of criteria on which a child should be graded. But then I also think that there are differences in philosophy. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some level of check, some level of evaluation of a student's performance and their performance on the state standards. But there also needs to be, very importantly, a communication to families as to what the grading policy is of a school, what the grading policy is of a particular teacher. And so a lot of these decisions are made locally. A lot of these decisions are made not just with the principal and teachers, but decisions made in partnership with parents. I'll just say that grading is a very complicated issue. I respect the position from which you are coming, wanting to be able to objectively say how a child is doing, whether or not they're prepared for life after high school, what kind of college should they predict that they might attend. But I will say that having gotten in conversations about grades as a principal, and it took a lot of conversation and a lot of discussion to really get on the same page for what the philosophy of the school might be. And different people value different things. But I don't disagree with you in theory. I just think that it's a complicated conversation.
Well, it is complicated, but there's no. I disagree that it comes in association with parents. I think it sometimes is done in association with SLTs, but actually, usually not a lot, and usually only with much debate and pushback from parents. And I don't see why it's not something that parents have a right to ask before they enter a school or before they even apply to a school. And I think something like grade distribution and test score distribution within that grade, class, teacher is something that should be public. And then it can be very obvious if there's grade inflation or harsh grading. It could be very obvious if the grades given out match roughly with how kids do on tests. Why is that so difficult? Why is just delivering that data so difficult and letting people decide for themselves what that distribution looks like?
All I'm saying is that there are a lot of different philosophies amongst parents.
But just delivering the data says nothing about philosophy. It's just delivering the data.
I think it does, because you actually have to, in order to arrive at a grade, you have to be able to be on the same page as to how that grade, what criteria contributes to that grade. So I think that that's what we're talking about here, right? Is that there are
most schools have published their grading policy to some extent.
Yeah, true.
So that's published. So you have that philosophy, and then I'm just asking for the raw data of the test scores and their grades. Not identifying anybody in particular, the distribution, the scatter plot. I mean, there are, we have 6th graders that are capable of doing this work. And we certainly have 8th graders that are capable of doing this work. Why can't, and we have CEC members that are capable of doing this work on an anonymous basis. And we're obliged to keep it anonymous. Why can't this be delivered?
I mean, I think it can be in some places, but I don't think that this is something in which, as a system, we're looking to do across the board in all schools for all kids.
This brings us to the problem that this board has had with the big issue. There's, in the end, very little accountability for student outcomes, and tied with that, many parents feel, teacher and school outcomes. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Das. Now we're going to proceed to, and thank you, Superintendent McGuire. The next item on our agenda is committee reports. Do any council members wish to make any committee reports at tonight's meeting?
I just want to mention the chess. Ben can also probably chime in. We had pictures. I don't know if it's time that we have time to bring them up, but the chess is continuing. Impact Coaching is doing an amazing job. We had a bunch of the team from the bilingual team with the asylum seekers who are part of the team now, traveling to Saratoga to compete in the state test championships. The program is doing tremendously well. Unfortunately, they're going to run out of money soon, and we don't know what will happen with that program. But for those of you who don't know about it, it's a program that Impact Chess Coaching is doing with mostly volunteer basis and some finances that were given by a family in District 2, trying to host any families who basically were interested, but in particularly families who speak Spanish and want to both improve their English and form communities and learn chess in the process. And they have this amazing coach who is a champion from Puerto Rico, who's young and I feel is a wonderful role model. Ben, why don't you add on to that since you were also in the mix?
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, they're doing a wonderful job. It's actually they're a related company, the Gift of Chess. It's a nonprofit organization, and but there were 2 students who actually came up with the idea to provide this program for migrants, asylum-seeking students, and they're actually high school students at Stuyvesant High School, and they're the Spectrum News New Yorkers of the week, and so congratulations to them. They were D2 students that I had known previously on a chess tournaments that I'd attended, but it's amazing to see how it's not just asylum-seeking students attending these daily or sessions. It's also families coming with them, and they're learning English. And it's like a community center, and there's a great little video about it in Spectrum News, and I hope everyone can watch it. It's just wonderful to see how some community members coming up with great ideas, getting parents involved. I really hope they can raise money, and it's nonprofit and reestablish this so it can go beyond. I think they're in their current location till the end of the month, and then there's an off-Broadway show starting in that location. So that's why they have to look to a new location. But yeah. So, but thank you for Robin for bringing that up.
Thank you. I would just remind all council members, please wait until you're recognized by the chair. There's an order here tonight. I was actually going to ask to take Ben out of turn because I know I'm sure he wanted to speak on chess, but please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Daniela actually had her hand up earlier, but
I'm sorry, that was about the committee meeting, Ben, my committee for students in temporary housing. And I asked Ben to weigh in since he's a liaison with me since Ushma is no longer here. So he's been a liaison with Coach Russell.
No, I get it. I just want to make sure we follow procedure.
Of course.
Daniela, oh, so Ben, are you done speaking or you still have your hand? You're muted, Ben.
Let Daniela go first. She had
Okay,
a
I'll
hand
come
raised
back
up.
to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Daniela.
I just want to talk a little bit about the safety committee because I know it was a very difficult day for our schools today. We have, I believe, 3 shootings, at least 2 100% confirmed, all in Manhattan. I believe all in Manhattan in schools. And so there's been tons of messages. And I just want to say that Rob and I are in constant contact with the organization's advocacy for school safety and monitoring the situation. And we are definitely providing input on the policies that need to be advocated for to really make sure that our kids are safe coming in and getting out of school. And we will be scheduling a town hall about safety again soon, just to make sure that, if there are other issues, thank goodness, I think none of the shootings today were in our district. I think one in our district, but none in elementary or middle school. So it was all in high schools. But again, we are in touch with, a big network across the city that is monitoring the situation and really advocating for more resources, whatever the NYPD can provide now, given their shrinking workforce.
Danielle, do you have anything else? Okay. Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly mention about the Zoning and Capital Planning Committee. We had a meeting. It was a joint meeting with a number of other districts. I think it was District 3, District 20, 24, 25, 26. We had a guest speaker where we had this joint meeting with Margarita Rosa. She's a finance, she's a professor who specializes in school funding. And I learned a lot of things during that meeting. And we have it streaming from our District 2, our CECD2 YouTube website. I welcome all, if people haven't seen it, I think and you're interested in financing and the weeds of it, I suggest to watch it. I think we had 120, 130 people attend, but since then, I think about 250 or so have watched it. So it was it's great. I hope we can do other joint meetings with other districts on other topics like that. But okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members wish to give any committee reports? Okay, so the next item on our agenda is discussion.
I had one,
Oh,
sorry.
Sure.
Just one. I wouldn't tend to, I haven't talked to Robin about this, but I would probably like to do an A&D committee meeting probably within the next month, especially if we get all results for middle schools and kindergarten before then. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't have a specific date in mind. It's path dependent on how that stuff comes out.
And could you tell members of the public what your abbreviation stands for?
Oh, I'm sorry. A&D is the Admissions and Diversity Committee. Robin Keller and I are co-chairs. We've had several meetings since the start of our term. They're usually highly attended. Some of them as much as one of these meetings, and some of them as many as hundreds. Usually, that's in the back of. In the past, that's been in the back of disappointing placements, but we'll see how that goes this year.
Thank you. Last call for committee reports. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is discussion of resolutions. But before I do that, I just wanted, for those of you who this is your first CEC meeting, members of the public should know that in order for a resolution to be placed on our agenda, that resolution will need 3 council members to sponsor it. So in case any of you are wondering about the procedure, and the resolutions are the main method that the council uses to make pronouncements on what we're saying. But a resolution, in order to pass, will require 6 votes. Currently requires 6 votes in order to pass, and we'll have our voting later on. So with that, I would like to ask if any council members wish to chime in and have a discussion or make any pronouncements on Resolution 223, which is entitled The Current State of High School Admissions in District 2. Councilmember Das?
I just happy to hear comments first. I just want to make one comment at the end if nobody else raises their hand.
Okay, Councilmember Das, why don't you go ahead?
It's very minor. First of all, Chen, thank you for presenting. And the two comments I'd like to make. One, there was one minor typo. There was an extra O somewhere that I removed in case anybody cared. And the other one is that, yeah, the main big part of this issue of this resolution, I think, has to do with the fact that there is no district priority of any kind. And it's something that has plagued our district for at least 2 years. I think it's gonna happen again this coming year. While we have some indication that it might be better, that's to be expected, I think, due to the tightening of the bands, due to enrollment loss. That alone should account for it. So I don't think that should be any cause for celebration, if that is what's happening. And beyond that, we've heard anecdotally and from parents calling in saying that they had made other plans because they were quite disappointed with what's been the general trend in the DOE towards lottery. So while we did thank them for some incremental improvements that have been made over the years, at the end of the day, what we have right now is not substantially different than what we had under Mayor de Blasio and what he wanted to put forth, particularly in the hybrid of the specialized high schools, and that top 7% of kids get placed in specialized high school by grades. Instead, we see that just one step down, and it's higher, it's 15%, and in some ways even worse because it introduces the lottery. So combined effect with the lack of district priority, and I do again remind that there were schools created specifically in Manhattan, specifically in downtown Manhattan, to address the needs of our graduating students. There were not enough schools. I invite even Jennifer Greenblatt to speak on this because I think she's intimately aware of one of the schools. Is to address students in our district that had nowhere to go, and it is patently unfair to have to compete with students in other districts who enjoy, some of whom enjoy both, all of whom enjoy district priority, some of whom enjoy district and zone school priority. Jennifer, have you looked at anything maybe about Elro?
I could tell you there were 6 schools started under the jurisdiction of District 2. They were a little bit different than most high schools. At that point, there was a high school superintendent for all of Manhattan. These high schools that were started under District 2, Millennium being one, Elro, School of the Future, Museum, Lab, and Baru. Did I say 6? I believe so.
You did say 6. You did say 6, but I didn't count.
Okay, I didn't count either. So they were started under the jurisdiction of District 2 because they were great elementary and middle schools, but there was nowhere for these kids to go. And so they either went to private, they left the city, or went to a parochial school. And until it was taken away, there was District 2 priority for students here to attend those schools. Anything else specifically that you?
Would you also agree Millennium was created with 9/11 funds?
That I'm not 100% sure. It was created under Shelley Harwain. She was the superintendent then. It ran sort of parallel to when Elro was created. I'm not sure which one came first, but within a few months of each other. I don't know if it was created using 9/11 funds. That I don't know, but I do know that Elro was created specifically for District 2. I happen to be the parent leader on that. The resolutions that sit with the Central Department of Education that came forth to approve that clearly stated that priority to District 2 for the students in detail.
I would like to, for the parent asking, ELRO is ELRO. ELRO, short for Eleanor Roosevelt. That's what she's referring to. Yeah, I would like to investigate further the millennium aspect, but I did live here during that time, and I do remember that during that time we had a shortage of schools downtown, period. And there were 9/11 funds broadly used for many development purposes, including schools, broadly speaking. But I either did not know or had forgotten about the millennium aspect, and it's something I'd like to research further. But it is something I do trust that the community board one has accurate, because she had.
And I could get you accurate information on that. The person that could give me that information happens to be out of the States right now, but when they return, I will ask and I will get back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Len. Sorry, I see your hand up.
Let me just say one thing, as long as I'm talking about middle school and high school admissions. I'm sorry, not middle school, not high school, middle school and kindergarten. Kindergarten typically comes out earlier. And so my guess is that kindergarten admissions will come out earlier than middle school.
Even with the GNT component
Even with
of
the
it?
GNT.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Jennifer. So any other council members like to say anything? Okay, so I would like to speak in favor of this resolution, and I want to just specifically mention District 2 priority. In our district, the debate usually is framed in terms of that there are certain advocates in our district for the highest performing students, that people are claiming that many of us tend to advocate only for those students. And I couldn't disagree more. District 2 priority, which we had before, helps every single student in this district. Now, you can get into a debate about resources and whether or not it's fair that our District 2 students may have access to some schools and other and a choice over other students coming from other districts. But the reality is there's only a certain number of seats specifically in our District 2 schools. And I do believe that we should advocate for District 2 priority because it is it's really important that we as a council support our students. And District 2 priority, as I said, it helps everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're a lower performing student, whether you're a student with an IEP, whether you're the top performing student. And I think that gets lost in the messaging here because we tend to frame all of these debates in terms of equity and along those lines. But District 2 priority is fair to every single person, every single student in this district. And I think it's a shame that it was taken away. And the decision to take it away was kind of made without really any community input, without discussion. Parents did not have an opportunity to chime in, to make their thoughts known. And it really caught a lot of people off guard, unfortunately. And I think if there's any parent here that's either here tonight or is going to come because their student did not get one of their choices, or whether it's their top first choice, second choice, or down the line to your 12th choice, part of that will be the result of the failure to maintain District 2 priority. I have always believed that that each of our students is different, each of our students is unique, and we shouldn't look at them as numbers. A lottery system looks at kids based on numbers. And I think we have to get away from that thinking. We have children with IEPs, students with social emotional needs, and we have to try to find the best schools that suit each and every one of them and not just a lottery-based system. But I do think District 2 priority is critical, an absolutely critical piece of this admissions puzzle. And we should be advocating for it. I would vote for any resolution, support any resolution that makes that a centerpiece.
Len, can I just piggyback off that? There's one other minor amendment I'd like to make, and that is on the back of that.
Are you making an amendment to the
Yes.
resolution?
If you could just share my screen, I can.
Okay, so you're proposing an amendment. Okay.
Yes. Very minor. Can people see this? Yeah. Exactly to your point. I lost my mouse. But exactly to your point, and this is actually suggested by parents. One of the first bullet points that I have highlighted a return of academic screening with more narrowly defined tiers instead of tier one. And to your point, it does help all students. And it wasn't just a narrowly defined bucketing of tier one, it was a narrowly defined bucketing of all tiers. And I just wanted to reflect that change in the document.
So I just so we're clear, are you proposing a change in the wording of your resolution?
Yes, first bullet point, more narrowly defined tier one to just more narrowly defined tiers, minor change.
So we will have to vote on the approval of that amendment, correct?
Yes, but we'll have to make a motion to do that. I just thought I'd throw that in there. I'm happy to do that. Do you want me to do it now, or do you want me to make the motion when people are done discussing?
Does anyone, well, let's do it this way. Would make the motion first, then we can have a discussion on the amendment. If the motion is seconded and we agree to hear the motion.
I'll second it.
Well, you have to make the motion. I want to
I
hear.
make a motion to change the word define tier one to just tiers.
Okay. Does anyone second that motion?
With take out the A as well, with more narrowly defined tiers.
Thank you.
I second it.
Call for discussion on the proposed motion. Anyone wish to say anything? Okay.
I agree.
Okay, then with that being said, I would close discussion. Let's have a roll call vote on the proposed amendment.
All right, this is a vote on the amendment to edit resolution number 223, Robin Broshi. Is Robin Broshi on?
She said she had trouble. She said she's having trouble and she got booted and then
She
she
has
was coming back
internet
in.
problems, yeah.
Okay,
Please,
since
Ben,
she
do
said, wait,
you
wait.
have her co-host?
Okay, since she said that they are,
She's on. I'll make her co-host. I didn't realize she was bumped off.
okay.
Check Lupe as well while you're at
Come
it.
back to her. Kaushik Das,
Yes.
Daniela,
Yes.
Lupe,
Check to make sure she's co-host as well.
We'll come back to
and we'll come
Lupe.
back to Lupe, Robin, yes, Jen,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Janie,
Yes.
Lily, is she co-host? Because I did see her join.
Oh, 1 second. I'll make her co-host as well.
She just texted me.
Yes, she's co-host now.
She's on.
Lily, are you able to unmute
But
yourself?
no, I'm sorry. Okay, she should be able.
Yes, I can speak now.
Yes, okay. Spencer,
Yes.
Can we recall Councilmember Broshi?
Robin Broshi, how do you
No.
vote? No on the amendment?
We're voting on the amendment, Robin.
Sorry, it was, well, I'll abstain.
Okay. Councilmember Hernandez, are you on?
Lupe, how do you vote?
I do not see her.
So, okay, so
Let me just ask, is there an indication that Councilmember Hernandez was having some sort of computer issues?
I saw something like that in the chat.
So her
I don't see her on here.
One
computer
person at a time.
system,
Robin, go ahead.
her computer system,
She's not on.
the computer was forcing her to install new system software. So she's stuck.
So what I am going to propose, the amendment will pass. It has more than 6 people, but I will leave it open for Councilmember Hernandez to record her vote if everyone else agrees, whatever her vote was on this amendment in our final tally. If
It's
that's
8 yes, 1 abstain, and then Spencer is also.
okay, so the motion passes. The proposed amendment is approved.
I am no longer sharing, correct?
No, you're not.
Great, thank you.
Len, do you see that the Mandarin interpreter said that her line dropped? Or Ben, can you?
No, I'm sorry, I don't see that.
I just added her.
Okay, thanks, Chanel.
Yeah, and I can't, it's hard for me to monitor everything that's going on. So if you see something,
I
please.
know, we all need to help out. It's really hard with the.
Thank you. Okay, so do you have any more discussions on this resolution? Any more proposed amendments? Okay, so we're going to move right on to the second public speaking session. Can I ask how many people we have signed up?
4. I just put it in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to propose that each speaker gets approximately 2 minutes for comments. If you can try to keep it to 2 minutes, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Can I please have the list put up, or can the first speaker be?
Tamira R. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi. I actually had, it's kind of a question, and I'm not sure if this would be something, Kelly, that you would, sorry if I'm freezing a little bit. Kelly, I don't know if this is something that you would take up with your principals, or if this is something that the CEC might take up as in their schools. But in terms of SLTs across each school, there's a lot of, what's the word? There's not a lot of sort of doing the same thing across schools, not up to the chancellor's regulations, not using the same practices, not posting minutes online, not having a chair, having the principal run the meetings. And so this has kind of been a little bit of an issue, I know, in different schools in our district, where parents don't feel like they know who to go to about SLT meeting minutes, what happened in the meeting. They don't want to ask the principal. So if the principal is the chair, that's a little bit of an issue. So I was wondering if the liaisons, if you go to the SLT meetings, if you've been to any SLT meetings, and if that might be a way to kind of bridge the gap. If these schools maybe don't know how an SLT runs, or need a workshop, need a training, but just more accessibility for the community, for the parents to be able to read these minutes and know what's going on, and also just transparency in general. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just as I mentioned before, we really don't have a question and answer session, but I'm sure Superintendent McGuire and his staff will try to address your question.
Okay, so next up we have Lisa Marks. Lisa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I just want to say that I support Resolution 223, and I agree with the council's points about District 2 priority needs to be reinstated. That's the only fair thing to do across New York City. We have a finite number of high schools in District 2, and it's ridiculously unfair that anyone from the Bronx, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens can apply to our high schools, but our students cannot apply to schools outside of other boroughs with the same confidence that their lottery numbers and their priority would enable them to get a spot at those other schools in other boroughs. So I definitely agree with that. And I also agree that state test scores need to be considered for admissions for high schools as well as for middle schools. I think we need to move away from lottery, because as a parent of elementary school students, I already know of and have heard from elementary school parents who are in 4th grade as well as 5th grade applying out of the system because they don't want to deal with the aggravation and the bad luck of lotteries denying their children opportunities to learn at a level that their children need. So, we can't just go by grades, and we can't just go by lottery numbers, because state tests are, although imperfect, are the only thing that we have that is somewhat objective, that can measure student performance between schools. A 95 at one school does not equal a 95 at another school. So we need objective metrics across schools, and that's what state tests can serve in the admissions process. So I would really urge the DOE to advise parents now that state tests should be counted, because parents need a lot of information in planning a year or 2 years down the road that state tests may count for next year's admissions. I urge the DOE to reinstate state tests for admissions. And I also would like more information as to G&T applications for first, second, and third graders. I haven't heard anything about this, and I have parents who are asking. My first grader would like to apply for G&T into second grade. When will we get information about that? We were promised by
Ms.
Mayor
Marks, I'm
Adams
sorry, could
more
you please wrap it up?
I'm wrapping up. This is my last thing. That G&T would be expanding and we would be adding more seats, but yet in District 2, we don't really see that many seats being expanded for G&T. And the highest demand, if you look across the city for G&T, is in District 2. We have thousands of qualified students and we need more
Okay, Ms.
seats
Marks,
across
I
the
hate to
city,
do that to
including
you.
District 2. Thank you.
As the chair, I really don't.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Craig Slutskin. Craig, can you unmute? Sorry about my dog.
You never have to apologize for your dog. Thank you. And I want to, I'll try to be quick tonight. I do agree with Ms. Marks about the inclusion of state test results in admissions. And I want to say I do agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Silverman that district priority favors all kids in the district. It does not favor just the few. This is an issue of safety. It's an issue of allowing kids more time for after school activities, more time for their studies, and quite frankly, more time to be with their family and not being on the subway or on 3 buses. Or in many cases, the ability allows them the ability to work. Many of our students in our district have to work, and this, it's an hour or two of earning money as opposed to being on the subway. So I'm very much in favor of district priority. If not district priority, then borough priority, but district should obviously be more favorable, and that should be considered for next year. The one other question or point I'd like to make, and I know this is not a Q&A, I brought this up at the last meeting for the superintendents, and if the superintendent could, at a subsequent meeting, just talk about the process by which door locks are going to be installed in the schools. I know that was approved by the PEP. Many parents in my school are very anxious about it. We had, lockdown. I think people know I was under a desk for about a half an hour during a lockdown. So people are concerned about the door locks, and we kind of want to know how it's going to be rolled out. So if you can present that at a future meeting, that would be helpful to me and the parents in my school. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, Craig. Next up, we have Ashley Petrasevuk. Can you unmute? There.
Hi. Thanks for the time. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and she'll hopefully be attending the 3K next year. She's bilingual. She speaks French due to my husband being Canadian. Canadians have a huge advantage of learning 2 languages as a baseline, and we plan to send her to the dual language program at the 76th Pre-K Center, and have heard from many parents how successful it's been and how happy they are with the program. It's my understanding that there was intention for the program to be expanded to either K through 5 or through 8th grade, but that this was delayed in order to evaluate the program and the success of it. So I want to know if there has been an evaluation done and what next steps are being taken towards this goal. I've also heard that a survey was promised by the superintendent of the French community. Has that been completed? Right now, I feel like my family and other French-speaking families in the district don't have other options in public education, and we're forced to apply outside the system. And in addition, I just finished the pre-K3 application for my daughter and was surprised to hear that the 3K is not actually bilingual at the 76th Center, even though it actually is listed as bilingual on the site. So at the very least, I would have expected the expansion to start with the 3K once that was added in the same building. And I'm wondering if that is still a possibility within the September that's coming up for the 3K. And in general, I'm concerned that sending my daughter to public school without the ability to continue the second language will make it difficult for her to communicate with family members and her many bilingual friends. And I grew up in Brooklyn attending public school and always wished that I was raised bilingual. So I feel like this is a very valuable thing that I've seen my husband use a lot in his professional life. So I just want to know what I can do as a parent to move this along and what's being done behind the scenes.
Thank you. I believe Superintendent McGuire also posted his email address in the chat as well. So, Robin, do we have any other speakers?
None that I know of.
Yep. One more, Naveed Hassan.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, sorry. I see that in the chat now. Naveed, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am the Manhattan CC elected representative on the panel for educational policy. And I just wanted to give a little update, but because Ashley went right before me and I have a deep passion for multilingualism, I would like to support her request 1000%. I've been pushing for more of this across the city. It's a shame that New York City doesn't have more rigorous 3K through 12th grade multilingual programs, given that we speak 800 languages in New York City, and it would be a sort of a national model for how we can do multilingualism. But back to the update. The panel for educational policy is meeting on the 22nd. The big thing happening during this meeting, there are no school utilization changes for Manhattan or your district, but we're voting on the estimated budget. Many of the members asked for details. All we were given was a one-pager. It's $37.4 billion. There's a lot of politics involved in the timings of things. City Council was caught off guard last year, voting before the panel, which is actually not legal. So now they're forcing the panel for educational policy to vote like 60 days in advance without having strong details about the structure of the Fair Student Funding Formula, on which we'll vote next month, and then and different information about school enrollments, either the audited enrollment for this school year, which is not yet out, or the estimates that they're projecting for next school year. So it's very problematic, and we are not happy about that. The big things coming up on the budget, and even in estimated times, is the drop off in stimulus funding available to us, class size mandates, and also costs related to inflation and stock market declines will change the way our capital plan is structured. So that's really it. If you have any questions, I'll drop my email in the chat, and I'll be back next month to provide any more updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robin, again, do we have any?
Not that I know of, but if you see anyone or if any other members see anyone who I've missed, please let me know.
Then in that case, I am going to close the second public speakers session, which brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is the vote on resolutions. So I just wanted to mention two things before we proceed. Number one, in order for resolution to pass, it will require 6 votes. So everyone should be aware of that. Item number 2 is there's an indication that Councilmember Hernandez was having some computer difficulties. I would ask the council's consent that if she is not present for this vote, an opportunity be given for her to have her vote recorded at a later point in time when she is able to re-engage on this meeting, if she is able to do so tonight. Does yes, Councilmember Kwok?
Yeah, on a theoretical basis, I have no issue with it. I just wonder if it's if she's not here and she doesn't vote, and we go back to her after the meeting to get her registered her vote, whether or not it makes a difference in the outcome of the vote. Does that make it invalid just because of the bylaws and rules of CC?
That's a good question.
RCC?
My suggestion would be, why don't we wait to cross that bridge when we come to it? And I would also just to have a closing time, in all fairness, I guess by noon tomorrow, if she could let her vote be known. If she doesn't appear tonight, I don't see I don't see the prejudice in that. Is that acceptable? I understand what you're saying, Councilmember Kwok. Will just, but what? Oh, Jennifer Greenblatt is chiming in on this.
Is there a call-in option? If you have a call-in option, she can pick up a telephone, hopefully, and call in and give you her vote.
Well, does anyone have a way to get in touch with her? I don't know if she's actually able to see this.
I can see.
Okay, Robin, would you please do that? Thank you. I'm going to suggest we just wait about another minute or two. Let's see if Councilmember Broshi is able to at least get in touch with Councilmember Hernandez.
We can also make a motion though to vote because we haven't done that yet, just to move things along. And while we're waiting for her, we can move that along. Just a suggestion.
I agree with that.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on resolution 223.
I don't think you need a, no, the motion would be a motion to approve resolution.
I'm sorry, to approve.
To approve resolution
I
223.
second.
Wait, let me do it correctly. I'll do the motion. A motion to approve resolution 223 as amended, which is entitled Current State of High School Admissions in District 2.
I
I'm going to
second.
call it for a vote right now.
Okay.
We have a
Robin,
second.
we have a second. Daniela just seconded.
Okay.
Okay. Robin Broshi. How do you
Wait,
vote?
so
Wait,
what
wait.
are we doing about Lupe, or we're dealing with that later?
Well, I was going to wait. There was a call for the vote. Robin, do you have any information on Lupe?
Yeah, she said I can FaceTime her. Is that what we're talking about?
Um,
Can she just
Raven-
call the number?
Yeah, there's a call. Can someone post the call-in number if it's not
Because
posted?
there are other people who've dialed in. I'm sure she can do it.
I think she's okay. She appreciates the effort you are all making to make sure her voice is included, but she's trying to juggle because she's dealing with this Wi-Fi issue and her computer rebooting. So it's okay if you don't record.
Okay, again, I was just trying to be fair. Okay, so the vote has been called. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, so we're going forward. We're not waiting for her to call.
Yes,
in.
we are.
Okay. Robin Broshi, how do you vote?
No.
No. Hashik Das.
Yes.
Daniela.
Yes.
Lupe is absent. Robin, yes. Chen.
You're muted.
Yes.
Suspense. Ben.
Yes.
Len.
Yes.
Janie.
Yes.
Lily.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
So it passes overwhelmingly, which is 1, 2. If that's 8 yeses, and with Spencer, that's 9.
Okay, so Councilmember Kwok, that answers your question. I will. So Robin, just so Councilmember Broshi, just so we're clear, did she say it was okay to? Is she okay with going ahead with the vote, or does she want us to leave it open just so she could record her answer at a later point?
She defers to whatever the group is comfortable with.
Okay, is it
Can I
okay?
can I make one suggestion?
Sure, go ahead.
Because we just did it at our last meeting. If Councilmember Broshi does want to FaceTime Lupe.
She can't. Apparently, that was not.
Fine.
There's a lot of chaos right now.
Okay, fine. I'm just offering it as an option because we did do it in our last special meeting, so I was offering the same ability to her.
Okay, so if there are no objections and we can vote on it, I just say just leave it open so till I guess noon tomorrow if she wants to let Chanel know what her vote was. But it is marked that she was absent, but we're going to give her an opportunity to have her vote recorded. Jennifer, is that something we could do if we consent, as far as you're aware of?
I never heard of that.
All right, so
You could just say yes or no now to Robin.
is that okay, Robin? Well, can you do
You
that?
okay with that?
She says no.
Okay. So if
Why don't we move on? This seems.
Yeah, no,
wait,
Councilmember Kelleher, I'm just trying to make sure all the voices are heard. That's all.
Okay. So she says no.
So we'll
She
record her
votes
vote as no.
against this resolution.
So we'll record her vote as no.
Point of order. I'm sorry. I just want to be clear on the process and whatever the rules are, or Robert's law, whatever the rules are, that someone can speak to someone and vote on someone's behalf. I'm not sure I've read that as part
I
of the
just want to be
bylaws.
clear. Whatever the council wants to happen can happen. I'm not pushing this at all.
Yeah, again, Councilmember Kwok, again, if we want to do it this way, it's fine. Nobody has to. I'm not forcing anybody to do it. Councilmember Morton, if you want to.
Yeah, there was an issue with that was brought up regarding using FaceTime for last month, and Face, not to make a pun of this, reviewed it and they gave it their blessing because that it was visible, the council member was visible, and their voice was heard. I don't know if Face would agree to a representative for a council member giving a vote, given what transpired last month.
I will just say, I don't know either. I would just say, but one thing we are clear, it will not change the outcome of this vote at all. But Council Member Urgarov, you had a question?
Yeah, I think, Len, you have made more than, enough efforts to allow her to vote. And so I really think we should move on. And I think creates a really, even though it doesn't change the outcome, I think creates a really bad precedent if people not can play. And
Okay.
yeah,
That's fine. If there's an objection, if there's an objection, then
I object.
okay, then we don't have to do that. I just made it a proposal. Okay, so we'll record her as absent as originally. I think we have it on the record through Councilmember Broshi, how she was going to vote. We made an effort, I agree, and we'll move on. But thank you. Anyone else, anything on that particular issue? Sorry to drive everyone crazy tonight. Okay. The next item on our agenda is new business. Do we have any new business that anyone would like to bring?
Len, the approval of the minutes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Approval of minutes. Do we have the minutes from our last meeting?
It's attached to the agenda as a link. There's a link.
Ben, could you share them? Is that possible? Are you the host still?
One moment.
Let me see if I could.
I could probably do that.
And it was emailed to the council members.
Yep.
If anyone else wants to share their screen, who has it to save time?
I could try to share it. So bear with me one moment. All right. Do you see it on the screen?
That doesn't look like the minutes.
It is. Do you see the votes?
No, if you looked at the minutes, there is a picture at the top. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
I love how Chanel did that.
Yeah, it's.
We're getting very fancy in District 2.
Yes, we are, and she puts a lot of time into it, and it's. I like it personally. But if you go to the agenda, you can click it. And it records all the votes and the bullet points. Obviously, we have the meeting on our YouTube channel. So
and if anyone wants him to stop, just let us know. Any council members wanted to stop on a specific page. Otherwise, Ben, just scroll right to the top.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any proposed amendments to the minutes? Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the February 2023 calendar minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Do we need a roll call vote? I don't think we need.
It helps.
Do we need a roll call vote? I don't think
it helps Chanel to have the roll call.
All right, Chanel, we'll do a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes.
Robin Broshi, do you approve?
Yes.
Kaushik,
Yes, I approve.
Daniela,
Yes.
Lupe is absent. Robin, yes. Chen,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Janie,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Okay. Minutes are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is now new business. Anyone new business that any council members would like to bring up? Okay, wow, I think we're gonna set a record tonight. guys.
Wait. I have something. I have
No,
two.
You had to blow it, Kush, right?
I did. I have two
We're
quick
so
things.
close.
Well, no, that's one's quick. Naveed, and if you're still with us, I would like to connect with you on the dual language program issue. I know it's a passion of yours. I think it's something that we might actually agree on. I think it's, I think it's quite also the word. I can't think of a better word right now, but despicable actually is the word that comes to mind. It might be too strong a word, but District 2 has fewer DLP programs than District 3, despite being 3 times its size. I would love to work with you to see how that can be changed. That's it for new business for me.
Thank
I
you.
would like to just mention one thing since you mentioned he's been tremendous PEP for updating, sending me updates about what's occurring and getting us calendar dates and some stats. So I have to thank you very much for that, and I'm very glad to that you've been so responsive. So appreciate your help and your resource and being on the PEP. Thank you.
Anyone else have any new business or items they wish to bring up? Okay, before we proceed, we usually adjourn these meetings and then we go right into our working business meetings, which last month I believe was after midnight. I am going to propose that when we adjourn, we take just a 5-minute break, nothing more than 5 minutes, because we have everybody here. So we'd like to start on time, and we'll go right into it.
I
5 minutes
oppose.
from now. You oppose? Okay. Okay.
We also need to make sure we adjourn this meeting properly before we do that, one way or the
I
other.
agree. Okay, that's fine. Motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Okay, now I'm going to call to order our working business meeting unless anyone wants to take a short break. I mean, we're making record time, so if you want to keep on going, it's fine with me. Robin says keep on going. Let's keep on going.
Yep.
Okay, call to Chanel. Can we call the working business meeting to order? I feel like
Robin, roll call. I can do roll call. Robin Broshi.
Here.
Kaushik.
Here.
Daniela.
Here.
Lupe. Is she going to come back? Robin Broshi, do you know if Lupe is planning to come back?
I think mark her absent. It's fine.
Okay. Well, let her know if she wants to come back. We'll figure something out. Robin, I'm here. Chen.
Here.
Ben.
Here.
Len.
Here.
Janie.
Here.
Lily. Here. And Spencer.
Here.
I think we just set another record of everyone except for Lupe being here.
Wow, it's like a half day, Robin. I mean, this is incredible. Okay, let's try to get through this meeting rather quickly and not get hooked up, slow down. Does anyone have, next item on the agenda, liaison school updates? Anyone like to tell us about their liaison schools? I know there are issues in the district. Don't be shy. Anything? Okay, wow. Suggestions for next item on the agenda, suggestions for future council presentations. I'd like to start that off and just say I would like to see presentations on admissions, and I would really like to see those presentations with some data specifically for District 2. I think that we're certainly going to have some information out there with regard to high schools by the next meeting, and I would like to see something on that. I don't know if it's feasible, but let's get the real numbers. Let's see what's happening with kids in District 2. And let's see, how that's being impacted in terms of people leaving the district or telling us that they might not be coming back. But I would support something on admissions because I think that's a real hot topic in our district. I think it certainly concerns so many people. And I would just also tell parents, even though you might not think admissions is going to impact you because it's something that may be coming up years from now, I can't tell you how many times before you know it, you're going to be affected by those decisions. And I have heard it again and again. Why didn't I say anything? Why didn't we speak up? We had no clue, no idea. And then it's too late. So you have to be engaged, you have to be involved, and you have to speak up if you want to have any influence in this district. You have to let your opinions be known. Whatever your positions are, just speak up and speak out on these issues so we can know exactly what your thoughts are. So next person, I think, I don't know the order. So Robin, I'm going to go to you next.
Yep, the order you can see based on who is lined up with their hands. I 100% agree with you, Len. I think my first priority would be admissions. I'd like to see it by grade, and I think it's it's crucial. I think I would hope that would be our next presentation. Secondly, I would love to see what we talked about earlier. I'd like to see the results of some of the testing that we've been doing, whether it's state tests, iReady, the map, and I'd like to see how the data compares from year to year. And I'd like to have I'd like to hear responses from the DOE as to what they're going to do to change this and how they're going to encourage more students to take tests, since there are groups out there who are opposing tests and trying to get people not to take the test. So I'd like to see how the DOE will respond to that. I'd love to hear a presentation on that. Thank you.
Next will be, we'll go to Councilmember Das.
Just so you know, Len, I'm on the same page as you. I already asked Sarah Kleinhandler for the numbers of kids who didn't get any of their matches, just so we manage our expectations, or if we want to increase her advocacy and requests. She said she did not expect to be able to give those numbers until late May. She pointed to the fact that they were in the middle of this admissions season, and that they were coming out earlier than they ever have before. However, I think it's a little bit disingenuous, because I think but the whole Department of Enrollment does know how many people didn't match. And I don't think that's a difficult lift for them to provide us that preliminary number. I just think the DOE is often reluctant to provide preliminary numbers, unfortunately. But if we want them, I think if other council members would like to chime in and send that to her, that would be helpful.
Councilmember Das, can you share that information? We reached out to her with us so we can.
Her email address? Yes.
Thank you.
I don't want to send that broadly to the group, though I do think DOE email addresses and phone numbers should be made more public, and that they're not celebrities. I will respect their privacy for now, and share it with all the council members afterwards via email.
Thank you. Councilmember Morton.
Yes, I was hoping to reach out. It was actually our AA's idea that we could reach out to the New York State Comptroller's Office. I'd like to find out how the allocation of funds of the ESSER funds, ESSER 2 and 3, ESSER being elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds are being spent. Again, as I mentioned earlier in my report, we went from 500 million to 1 million for academic recovery, which is a dramatic drop off. Our spending as a percentage of all the relief funds that New York City was given was as a percentage is for specified for academic recovery is a percentage lower than any city in New York State and major city and many major cities across the country. So I'd like to find out how those funds are being spent, and also find out how maybe New York City is allocating funds through a different method for academic recovery, because I'm confused about that, since it is a dramatic need. So I was hoping that we would have a presentation, whether it's from both the Comptroller's Office in New York State or for someone from the DOE, so we can share and learn how that's being spent. I know we've already had previous discussions on spending, but I like to get into more of the line items. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Councilmember Urgaroff, you had your hand up.
This might be very anecdotal and a small number, but I am even concerned about the students who got their match or who got their SHSAT schools. And Robbie and I heard from a handful who decided to not take that because they got a scholarship outside. And I quote, "I don't want to have to deal with the DOE anymore." And so I'm deeply concerned that the trust with parents have been broken to a point now that even when people get their match, like if they can leave, they get a scholarship, like they are out of the door. And I just really worry about us losing families who have dedicated so much time and resources to make our schools good. And we're really losing families who put so much time and really make this school special. And so, yes, Natasha, it's very nice to have the option when you get a scholarship. And so, and they take those options, and then we lose resources, like we lose people who make our school so good. And so I am just really concerned about that. And I think if we can get that number, I think would be really great, because I think it's a very important data point about like the broken trust between families in D2 and our public schools.
Thank you. I just want to also mention, just as a follow-up to some of the prior comments, I would also like to see a presentation on learning loss specifically in our district. And I think Robin Kelleher made a really good point before. And there was an article in one of the newspapers that talked about when you have so many people that opt out of tests and you're only getting a small sample. If you have a school where it looks like 90% of the students are scoring 4s or 3s on their state test, but it turns out only 10% of the students at the school are actually taking the tests, you got to shake your head and scratch your head and wonder like what's really going on here. So I would certainly like to work with Superintendent McGuire and find out if there's any way to get a kind of like an update or report what the consensus is in terms of learning loss in our district, because there's no question, I think, and I know Ben has posted, so I'm sure you're aware of some of the numbers. I know one thing I will tell you about our president of the CEC, he is always looking into the numbers and the data and really dissecting it and coming up with extrapolating what it really means. And I know those numbers are out there, and I think that would be really useful, because I know with fourth graders, I'm sure there's a significant learning loss in our district, partially the result of COVID, remote learning, and that's only going to get worse, and it's only going to continue to carry on as those kids get older and older and possibly compound the problems. I know, for example, just we've had in my own situation, my youngest son, we had to retain a private tutor at a great expense, just to make sure that he is on par with math. So I know that a lot of families are out there. I'm very fortunate to have that option. A lot of families are not. So I recognize that. And I would like to see something on learning loss in District 2 also. Okay. Moving on. Ben, I'm going to defer to you for location of May 2023. The next item, location of our May 2023 calendar meeting and working business meeting. Do you have an update on the open meetings law? What is this month's prognostication?
We're remote through March 21st, I believe, or 20th or so. So we need to take a vote for the potential in-person meeting for April. I suspect it's going to be renewed, but I don't have a crystal ball. So if we need the ability to have an in-person place, because we actually reserve the interpreters 2 weeks in advance. ASL, I don't know why they weren't available today, but our AA, Chanel Harris, she contacts everybody a few weeks ahead of time. So having that flexibility of accessing, and in this case, I was hoping for 333 7th Avenue again, but if we could just take a quick vote, so we have the flexibility. If it gets renewed, we'll know about on March 21st if we can do remote again.
And before we do, I just want to mention to the public should know that ordinarily our meetings would be in person, and we tried to spread them out throughout different schools in the district to accommodate the fact that we have a very large geographic area in our district that runs all the way from the lower west side, almost midtown, loops right around the bottom of Manhattan, and then comes all the way up to the Upper East Side. The governor has extended a waiver of the open meetings law, so we are allowed to have these remote meetings. So there's a discussion, whether we want to have remote live meetings, but that's what Ben is talking about right now.
It's actually the mayor who's renewed, not the governor.
Oh, the mayor. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and just one other point: our next meeting's April 18th because of spring break. There was typical second Wednesday wasn't available, so it's a little bit later next month.
So Ben, are you asking for a vote to hold the meeting at 7th Avenue?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a
what-
motion to vote to have an in-person meeting in 7th Avenue if remote emergency rules are not, OML rules are not extended by the mayor.
Okay.
I second.
What is the date? Sorry, what is the date for the meeting?
Tuesday, April 18th. And just so everybody knows, there are 3 months left in our term. It's Tuesday, May 9th and 13th.
Ben, you were breaking up. Could you repeat those dates just one more
Yeah,
time?
sure. My apologies. Tuesday, April 18th, Tuesday, May 9th, and Tuesday, June 13th.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Robin, could you do the roll call vote, please?
Sir Robin Broshi,
No.
Kaushik, Kaushik, how do you vote?
Sorry, is muted. Yes.
Daniela?
Yes.
Lucy is absent. Can someone? Okay. Robin, yes. Chen?
That's for April 18th, Tuesday.
This is a motion to hold the meeting live in the event that we can't have a remote meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Ben?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Janie?
Yes.
Lily?
Yes.
Spencer?
Yes.
Okay. Passes.
Robin, can you just tell us what the total is? Just so
One, sorry, I'm counting now.
Here, thank you.
Can I ask a question relating to this vote?
Eight yeses, and then with Spencer, it's 9. 1 absent and 1 no.
Sure, go ahead.
Robin Broshi, can I ask why you voted no?
I misunderstood.
Okay, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just wondering
No,
if
I
you
know.
preferred a
I
different
gotcha.
location.
No, yes, correct. I misunderstood. I thought, doesn't matter. I don't
So
care.
it's not, you're not saying you want it live. You're not saying you want a different location.
Correct. Just ignore me for like right now.
Okay. Next item on the agenda. So our next meeting, just for members of the public, will be, as Ben said, April 18th. Currently, it's live, but what the procedure has been is there's been constant extensions. I don't know why they only make them like for 30 days or 45 days, but the expectation is they'll do it again. So please check if you're a member of the public, check the CEC website for information in terms of when our next meeting is going to be and the location. Next item on the agenda, request for council correspondent and or public notices, i.e. PSAs, public service announcements. Anyone wish to say anything? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like the meeting that you mentioned, April 3rd. I was thinking that we do have flyers for that in several languages. I would like to have that posted on our website and send out as an email and to Twitter as well.
Okay, just to refresh everyone's recollection, and for those of you who are not present at the beginning of the meeting, on April 3rd, the District 2 President's Council, which I am a co-president of, will be hosting the District 2 Community Education Council Candidate Forum, and that will be an evening meeting. It is not a daytime meeting, it is an evening meeting. There will be a different, since I am actually running, there'll be different co-hosts at that meeting, but then I think that's a great idea. We want to publicize that and make sure that everyone shows up for that meeting. Does anyone have any, do we need to vote on that? I don't think we do. I mean, no. Okay. Next, anyone else have any other requests for council correspondence? Chen?
Is it worthwhile for the council to send, I don't know if we can reach all the families, but send messages to the families or to the schools, encouraging families to opt in to the state test? Can we do that as a CEC?
As the parliamentarian, I think if we were going to make a pronouncement on that, it would have to be in the form of a resolution or potentially a letter that we all agree on, but I think it would require a formal mechanism of some kind. Jennifer, I don't know if you agree. I always refer to Jennifer Greenblatt is our District 2 family. She's just an amazing resource for our district.
I would think that you would either make a motion or vote on it. I did see what was referred to before. I thought it was sent by the CEC to schools asking them to send it out.
Okay,
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I thought it was because I had somebody ask me whether or not they thought it should be sent out, one of the principals. So
Definitely caused a lot of confusion. I had people from school reach out as well.
it actually was confusing to me too, because I didn't understand what was going on until I actually looked at the flyer.
It was more UFT. Is that UFT or is that, what is that? And what is ECC? Because it says it's sponsored by them. Their logo's in the bottom.
Maybe I looked at something, maybe I saw something different than you. Mine was, I believe, from opt out.
There's opt out and then it has more ECC. Let me just look at it. I can text it to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, let me see if I could find the one
And as the president, could you give us a clarification? I'll get to you, Janie and Kush, if your hand's still raised. Could you give us some clarification in terms of what the policy is right now, in terms of having the CC send stuff out? Because my understanding is if you have the UFT, for example, certainly a lobbying, a union and lobbying branch. I personally don't think that as a CC, we should be sending out correspondence from the UFT or any other organization that is not an official branch of the Department of Education. But what's your understanding about the policy right now for letters and correspondence coming from the CC?
It's, from my understanding from the bylaws, it's up to the president. We did not forward the email that was going around regarding that was sent by more UFT, which I guess is a offshoot of UFT members, and ECC, which is now I believe a nonprofit organization. But and nor were we asked to send something out. Usually what we've tried to do is be very transparent by bringing this up in meetings here to send out. And I prefer not to that it's my decision or anybody. It should be a group decision if possible. Sometimes we don't have that ability to in a timely manner to inform the public, and like often if it's like a DOE notice that should be out in a more timely manner, we send out those notices. And usually you can receive them through schools but we try to be helpful. But the bylaws give maybe too much flexibility to presidents on this. Maybe there should be, maybe should be decided by the officers if it requires something timely, or when possible in a council working business meeting.
Well, thank you for your comments. It's appreciated, and thank you for involving all of us, as much as you have in the decisions in terms of being transparent. I think this council has tried as much as we have to be as transparent as possible. Kush, is your hand still raised? Oh, okay.
Sorry, yes, it is. Also in this regard, the one thing I would say is related to that regarding sending in a letter on behalf of the council. Yes, it's probably something that should be voted on. However, and this might be what Janie was using her hand for, before she left, Ushma worked with Janie on a mechanism by which we could send out letters as a group and decide on that in between meetings. And as last I heard, there was no objections from either FACE or any of the council members to that method. And so if it is something that we want to draft, I think that is something that we could can and should try in between meetings.
I remember those conversations, and Janie, could you, because you did have your hand raised?
No, Ushma and I did build out a rubric or a methodology or a prescriptive of how we want to collectively, as a committee, develop and agree upon letters, a letter to be sent out on behalf of CECD2. So I think the functionality is there, but the premise is that it's a way that we can all engage without having to get on a Zoom call and discuss, where you can kind of do it all via email. But it still needs, I think there was some discussion of, does stuff need to be signed off by all, or if it just has the appropriate number of people, 6 people, can you use just sign as CECD2? So let me pull up the letter, the final letter that we came up with, and recirculate it to people to remind ourselves of what we all agreed. But I do think that the letter that came to us as CECD2 members in this opt-out thing, when I looked at it, I thought it was official. You had to look deeper. It's kind of like spam mail. It's not clear to me that I would be comfortable forwarding that. I do think that if we wanted to send out any information for or against testing, we should do it in means that we are empowered to do via resolution. Because I do believe, I personally think tests are important, but other families may feel otherwise, and I think it needs to be put to a vote.
And just to follow up on your comments, I understand what Ben's talking about the timing, because sometimes we don't have time to respond. But I do like when we do things through resolutions, we do give the public an opportunity to comment on those resolutions, and I think that's important as well. So thank you. You can share that at a later point in time, or now, or whatever. Anyone else on this particular issue? Ben, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just want to make one last point. Every PSA that we send out that's not a notice from our council has a disclaimer basically stating that the meeting may or may not be in line with the council's view. So just so you know that we do have disclaimers on our PSAs. It's more to inform the community, basically. But, yeah.
Thank you.
This meeting already took place. It was at 7:30 tonight.
Okay. Well,
Just so you know that. Sorry, I didn't mean to like.
No, there could be future meetings as well. So it is a topic that's probably gonna.
Who got this notice from where?
We all received it.
The council received it.
Yes.
So someone emailed the council,
and it was also
Neil
sent
forwarded
out.
it to us.
Robin, can you let Council Calvin just let Ms. Broshi finish? Councilmember Broshi finish, please.
I don't understand. An email was sent to the council's main address, and Neil forwarded it to us, but not the community. Is that correct?
No.
Yes. Everything in the CEC email goes to the council members only.
So I don't understand what the issue is. Our email address gets so many emails.
I think if I'm correct, are we talking about issues of whether or not we're going to then forward stuff on to pass it along? Is that the issue, as I understand it?
Yes, that is the issue, not the issue that we received the emails. The issue, the ask of us was, can you please distribute this? And
but we get that. I mean, most of the emails that go into Chanel, the main address, are because people want us to forward them. I'm just confused why this particular one got people's attention, because I feel like those kinds of asks come in all the time. And obviously, we should be very judicious about what we forward.
Yeah, I think the reason why it came up is because some of the council members were getting questions as to, is this coming from you guys?
But
So
from
that's
who?
why.
Okay, so that's my question, because
They thought it was coming from CEC, like the way it kind of looked, maybe
But
they
if
thought
we
it was.
didn't send it, I don't understand. So what, those people, where did they get it from?
They probably got it
Can I respond?
separately.
Oh, let Janie, you finished? Okay.
I don't want to interrupt, but just to answer
Donaldson,
to answer the direct question. What happened was other CECs forwarded it, and additionally, some of our schools got it independent of us.
Okay, wait.
Because
No. I just want to. When you say schools, do you mean like
Let him
parent
finish,
coordinating?
Robin.
Councilmember
Or do you mean?
Interrupt. Let him
Councilmember
finish.
Broshi, just
Come on, I'm
Let
trying to
him
have a
finish.
conversation.
We
You know
can
what?
have a conversation,
I'm trying to
just
have a
let him finish.
Kaushik actually understands what I'm trying to do here. Kaushik, when you say our schools, do you mean parent coordinators or do you mean PTAs?
It could be any of the above, but my understanding was it was parent coordinators, principals, PTAs may have also gotten
Other
it.
CECs forwarded like blindly passed along some information to parent coordinators and PTA presidents. But okay, fine. And that's other CEC's business. But so I want to understand what exactly what is our concern as CEC2?
I can share what is our concern.
Let me answer. Let me answer. That's fine. So I think there's broad confusion because I think several of our schools got it from other CECs because people can be on multiple mailing lists. I'm on CEC3, for example. I'm on some other CEC mailing lists. I think there are any number of our schools that neighbor other CECs, other districts could be, whatever. There's cross proliferation there. They may not have read their emails carefully. Some of them saw that they came from CECD2, which it did not. Wait, let me finish. Let me finish. All that being said, Chen's question was also, can we send out something to the contrary? And I think that's to sum it all together. There's the initial confusion. There's no confusion where it came from, and then then Chen's question was, can we help rectify that? So I hope that ties it all together.
Point of order. I'm just going to ask Jennifer Greenblatt has her hand raised. I'm just going to ask to take her out of turn. I understand that other people have their. Jennifer, would you like to say something on this issue?
I don't want to get into who, because I don't think it's important. I think the conversation needs to be, can an individual CEC member send something out to principals to share with their community if the CEC has not voted as a whole to disseminate this information to families?
Jennifer, thank you for that recitation of what the issues are. Daniela?
Yes, so I wanted to address what Councilmember Brosh asked, why it got so much for attention. It got so much for attention because we have an overwhelming majorities in this council elected by the parents who feel very strongly about state tests. And we really believe that we should encourage people to take state tests, particularly at a time of record funding to our schools, low enrollment, people leaving, incredible learning loss. And we're number one in funding across the country, but we're not number one in funding. And so that's why it really got our attention. I'm listening and I'm answering your question. Why got so much of our attention? And we feel it's problematic when
Kaushik answered my question.
I'm speaking. Please wait for me to finish.
Kaushik answered my question.
Well, I am still answering your question. And
no, you're not.
I'll be done when
what you're answering is not my question.
So
You're
I'll be
just
done
one
when
person
I'm
at a time,
finished,
please.
Robin.
Let's just.
And so
Robin,
the question is why at a time of record funding, record learning loss, we're number one in funding across the country, but we're not number one in terms of academic results for our kids. Why are we not holding our schools accountable? And we don't want to see a huge percentage of students opting out of this, because then we cannot hold accountable. Our schools have received so much funding and we are seeing learning loss. Our students are struggling. So we want to have the data to do our job and hold our schools accountable. That's why I got so much for attention.
Councilmember Broshi, you'll get a chance to respond, but I just want to add Councilmember Kelleher, you had your hand raised.
I don't want to enter into this right now.
Okay, Councilmember Broshi.
I had nothing to say. My point was Daniela just spent all this time answering a question I didn't ask, and it's wasting time. I said Kaushik answered my question. So that was grandstanding. And we all want this meeting to be over. I just need to understand what CEC2's role was in this particular question. Kasha helped me understand it.
Okay.
And Jennifer Greenblatt too. Now I understand.
Okay.
And it's over.
Councilmember Kelleher, you raised your
Yes,
hand.
I changed my mind because I just want to ask, again, Councilmember Broshi, please be respectful to the people on here. Len spoke up when others spoke out of turn. When you were trying to talk, it was Danielle Egerov's turn to speak, and you interrupted her numerous times and just insulted her. She has a right to speak. And then you wrote in the chat, you know, you insulted her in the chat about putting words in your mouth. I just ask you to be courteous. That's all I'm asking. And I also want to add on, I originally brought that up. So I would like to have a chance to reply to that, even though you claim your question is answered. I brought it up because Kelly spoke about testing. And I said there was confusion about whether or not that was official. And schools have reached out to me, PTAs, and students and parents to ask me if that's official. So there's a lot of confusion at a time when many of us feel that it's crucial to test so that we can be accountable for where our students are and how we can help get them back up to speed. So that's the answer. That's how it came up. And no, someone in the question, I think Anna Rojas says stop. She asked why we can't send that out because it's not our place to send out something like that. It's spam email from some groups that are trying to, I guess, destroy the DOE and do away with testing. And that's why we would never, as a school board, support sending out spam to schools that is not true, that is not from the DOE, and that is not within our beliefs. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, why don't we move on? So we ended up taking a big turn there. Any other issue? Let's move to the next. I'm going to close this discussion. I don't see any hands raised. Resolutions, share resolutions and or letters in development. Does anyone have any resolutions they want to share with us in advance? Okay. Any letters people are thinking of? Probably not after that last conversation. Okay. Calendar updates. Ben, you gave some calendar updates before. Any other updates? You muted?
Chanel might have some dates in terms of the regarding to budget dates.
Yeah, I'll just throw out there, we had a very productive special meeting to approve the budget. And there was a budget that was approved. I'm not going to ask Chen, our treasurer, Councilmember Kwok, who did an amazing job to go through it all. But we did have that budget meeting. Chanel, do you have, like, as Ben said, any calendar updates, deadlines you want to provide? I know about the March 21st deadline. Any other updates?
That's the only one. The others I could always email to you all.
Okay, so the March 21st deadline is to submit expenses for the past term. So, okay. New business. Anyone have any new business they wish to discuss? Okay. So I think we set a record for tonight, despite our kind of going off a little. I want to thank every member, all the members of the council. Thank you again to Jennifer Greenblatt, especially our family coordinator, who is probably amazed that it's so early in the evening. Maybe it had to do with daylight savings time. I'm not sure, but we managed to get out of here. I really do feel like it's a half day today. So I want to thank you all, and I'm going to call this meeting a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, meeting adjourned.
No, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, you didn't want to adjourn? Okay.
I'm just
and
joking.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you for all the families for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.